Hi everybody, I'm Bree the Plant Lady, checking in with a weekly garden tour. Now this week we are starting with cold temperatures below freezing. We've got 28 for tonight and then 30 degrees. But then by the end of the week it's 80 and we have a frost-free 10-day forecast. So this is definitely the time of year where gardeners get really confused. I'm just gonna start this tour off saying it is too early for summer vegetables. I don't care that garden centers are already stocking tomatoes and peppers and basil. It's too early for those things. Now is the time to lean into another round of cool season vegetables, either from growing by seed or going to the garden center and buying trays of broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage. It is too early for tomatoes. Unless you are in like really warm, like southern Florida, it is not time. It is still March. In fact, we aren't even technically in spring yet. We've still got a few more days before we actually have the spring equinox. So resist the urge to buy those warm season vegetables because you're gonna have more than a month, realistically, 6 more weeks of temperature fluctuations where you'll likely have to bring those plants in and out of your house. I did go shopping yesterday. I had the best time at Bell's Seed Store down in Fayetteville, North Carolina. If you live anywhere near there, that is a must-visit garden center. I bought tons of seed, and as you can see, I got a fabulous weeping yaupon that actually has berries on it. This is destined to go into the native garden at the Carolina Garden House. And I did get a whole bunch of other plants that I want to show you, some of which are going to have to come in tonight because they've been in a greenhouse, and I don't think they will be very happy with having 28 degrees. So without further ado, let me turn this camera around so that we can start our weekly tour. So first, let me give you a close-up of this weeping yaupon. I really love the berries. If you've been watching my videos, you know that right around New Year's, I went down to Wilmington, and they had the most amazing yaupon hollies in a garden. And I was like, okay, I have to have those. So I'm really happy to have gotten this one. It's in a 7-gallon pot, so it's nice and big. Now, the cottage garden behind here, I'm happy to report everything is basically just sort of at a standstill. With warm temperatures in the forecast, everything will start growing again. But at least for the past 10 days, not a whole lot more has happened. A few more bachelor buttons have bloomed. I did just toss out a bunch of crimson clover and buckwheat seed to fill in any of the gaps because I really don't want to see any open mulch space. But overall, I'm really thrilled. You can see the poppies have gotten quite large. Of course, bachelor buttons, which are already setting flower buds. You can see lots of larkspur that is starting to elongate. Of course, there are poppies at different stages, so these are a little bit shorter. Sunflowers all over, some of which we covered, some of which we didn't. None of them seem to have gotten damaged with the cold temperatures. And I'm really excited to show you the fava beans, which I sowed way back in August. And, you know, I was really just doing this as an experiment. Did not think they would actually make it through the winter. But you can see they are starting to flower. They've got a really pretty bloom. So I'm super excited that the fava beans are as robust as they are. Of course, we've got lots of self-sown cilantro. This is a great plant to help deter animals. And of course, all of the daffodils finished over 2 weeks ago, but they are also great for deterring animals when you plant them right along the edge because daffodils are poisonous. And so deer and rabbits leave them alone, which helps prevent them from going in and messing with any of these other cottage garden plants. So it's probably not that noticeable, but I've done a lot of work in this property border, cleaning it up, getting some native things planted, including a bunch of tiarella in this little patch. And then on this other side, Aiden and I started getting a new native border planted here. And so, you know, there's not a lot planted yet because I'm waiting on perennials to come in. But we did get some muley grass planted and some mountain mint, Pycnanthema muticum planted, and I seeded it with buckwheat. Now I'm planning actually to overseed again with some crimson clover, and I actually found 1 pack of poppies. So look for my next video, will be all about sowing those 3 things. Not exactly sure, I don't think I'll do the poppies here, but I'm gonna do the poppies directly on some open ground. But I'm really excited to have this border started. Of course, I think it looks great with the Viburnum macrocephalum, which every week just gets more and more beautiful. Other viburnums are starting to bloom. That is Viburnum plicatum popcorn, starting to flower right there. And you know I say it over and over again, but earlier than ever. It's usually the viburnums are blooming the middle of April, not the middle of March. Everything here in the containers is looking great. The poppies are definitely starting to grow out. And yeah, overall, I'm just super pleased with how everything looks. The native shrub borders are definitely coming into life. Every day, a few more things start to leaf out, and just looking forward to getting more flowering perennials planted as the ground plane coverage element. I mentioned the poppies, and I think what I'm going to plan to do, or actually I know what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and toss that extra packet of poppies into this bed where you see the open sand. And that's just going to kind of be an experiment to see how poppies will do being planted this late. My suspicion is they won't really perform because we get hot so early and the poppies really prefer cooler temperatures. But again, I get so many questions about poppies, and the only way for me to really give good advice is to actually do it and sow the seeds at different times. So this is going to be the location that I plan to sow all those poppies in. You can see great germination from what we sowed on January 15th. I am confident this is going to look awesome for the spring open garden on Saturday, May 13th from noon to 4 p.m. And of course, you can see we've got cattle fence in here. I know it looks ridiculous, but to be honest, from a distance, you don't really see it. And it's not permanent. It's just there to kind of redirect the animals so that they leave these plants alone so they can get established. The perennial pocket bed is looking good. You can see that edge of garlic, and that's to help prevent the voles from going in and eating the roots of all the other plants. It is time for me to do the cutbacks. It won't take long. It's just cutting back the old stems. Everything is starting to actively grow. And of course, this bed's made entirely out of sand, and I'm not sure there's really enough nutrients for the poppies to grow out as effectively as they should. But again, this is all an experiment, something for me to learn from. Some of the poppies are looking really good, like these California poppies that were direct seeded are nice and big, but you can see others are really quite small. And I've been debating on whether I should give them some fertilizer, but I don't want to over-fertilize all of these native perennials because I don't want them to grow too aggressively. So this is, again, a really good learning experience for me. I've never really grown all natives before. I'm used to growing everything in really rich soil and having to kind of do the opposite of what I'm used to, which it's always hard to establish new habits. And I am perfectly happy acknowledging that this is new territory for me, and I'm just trying my best. I will say this little pocket of non-natives, lots of violas and onions, and of course a trachycarpus that I planted about 12 years ago. This bed really is looking quite nice. This is filled with soil cube, hence the, really vigorous growth of all the plants. There's a big difference between growing in lean soil and growing in the soil I'm used to. Again, across the front here, I've got to cut back those phlox, and I have a fabulous patch of chandler strawberries. You can see they're starting to bloom. And then over here, I got some strawberry starts from Bell's yesterday. So I'll make a video showing you how to plant strawberry starts that you buy in a bundle. And I'm going to fill in this section with that other cultivar. So then we'll have a great ground cover of strawberries. I won't have all this weed pressure, which I do need to get in here. You can see this chickweed and lamium is starting to go to seed. So if I don't pull it out now, I will have so much more germinate. Time is of the essence on this one. Well, it feels good to get back into the sun. It is really chilly today. I have more open space here, so I'm gonna go ahead and do another bit of weeding and then get this reseeded, likely with the buckwheat and crimson clover, so it'll fill in and grow and look great for the open garden. But everything that we sowed during the fall seeding classes is growing great. This is the Pephaver Reese. You can really see how scalloped the leaf is. That I believe is wheat, a big clump of wheat right there. In contrast to the Pephaver Reese, here is the Pephaver somniferum, the breadseed poppy. So you can see that is like a softer shade of green and a shinier leaf, whereas the Pephaver Reese has like a fur. So you can tell the difference, especially when you have them right next to each other. But they're great to grow in the same space. I highly recommend mixing and mingling. That's really what gives the cottage garden look its ultimate feel. Now, I can't believe that the gladiolus are starting to pop up out of the ground. That's definitely an indicator that the soil is quite warm. And then further down in this border, all that calendula that I sowed a few weeks ago is continuing to grow out quite nicely. So with any luck, all of this will be in full bloom when we have visitors in May. And this giant border is not much different from a week ago. I'm just super pleased with the density. And most of this is self-sown, with the exception of some of the smaller poppies that I did in January. So I think this border is going to look awesome. Now, a few hellebores that I haven't really paid attention to. I know I got these at Pine Knot. Look at that spectacular double white flower. Oh, it's just the prettiest thing. And then check out this double one. Oh, they are just so cool. Well, I think I will be making some more floating flower arrangements this afternoon. And along this border, you can see the Coralopsis is just about finished blooming. Still has some nice flowers on it. And the Hamamelis is definitely in its final days of flowering. Soon the leaves will start to emerge. Same thing with the redbuds. It's all happened pretty fast this year. You can see that the limelight hydrangea is already leafing out. So hopefully we won't have any extreme temperatures. Again, upper 20s is not a problem for all this tender growth, but you get much below 25 and there's some cause for concern. So last week when I was in Arkansas, I talked about Neolitsia because it's got really wonderfully fragrant flowers. And I'm so excited that the new growth is starting to come out. You can see it's this beautiful coppery, very velvety new growth. I think this is one of the coolest trees ever. It's a great broadleaf evergreen. Probably, I know it's sort of rare, but you can probably find it online or at some high-end botanical gardens. Neolitsia sericea. Definitely one of my favorite oddities to have in the garden. So coming along this border, I really am so impressed with the onions, and of course that is also to help reduce animal browse. you could see these poppies have definitely gotten some cold damage, but nothing that's going to impact their ability to flower. It's just, you know, nipped some of the leaves. A lot of it, you know, is microclimate based, and it's like one side of the walkway is more nipped than the other. It's really funny. All the poppies in these big 100-gallon root pouches are looking very good. These are going to be quite beautiful. I'm very pleased to see that all of this is looking as it should, and all of the cool season veggies, the broccoli and cauliflower that we planted last week, are doing well. I do need to come through and treat them again with BT because I am seeing caterpillar damage, and I'm sure there are cabbage worms somewhere. So we'll go through this afternoon so we don't have rain in the forecast and reapply BT on all of these little brassica plants. And so far so good on the Josephine Prunus Mume fruit set. I think 28 won't hurt them too much, and with any luck we'll get some that we can actually pickle, and maybe we'll try and figure out how to make the liqueur, and all the others will allow to germinate so that next year we will have more seedlings to dig up and offer, because Prunus mumes are really hard to find in the nursery trade. And as you can see, the lettuce mix and poppies that we sowed during the fall seeding class are doing really well. I actually am going to come out and harvest some lettuce for a salad tonight. I have not weeded the vetch. You can see along this border, but these poppies are moving right along. I mean, I have no doubt poppies like this are going to flower much earlier than usual. And you know, again, it's all a learning experience. It's like there's just nothing predictable anymore. So it's really hard to have conversations with people because it's like, I don't know. I just don't know. I've never had a climate behave this way in my 21 years living here. This year is different from all the others, and you know, we just do the best we can. And I'm pleased to show you that none of the blueberry flowers were impacted by last week's freeze, and again, 28 for tonight I don't think should be a problem. So that's good news because I really like harvesting my own blueberries, and I just am endlessly impressed with these containers. You know, I just cannot say enough about buying a few bulbs from Aldi and the incredible amount of joy they can bring. You know, I've been bringing these in for cut flower arrangements, and every time I look out the window, I see these bright red tulips and the pansies or violas mixed in, and then of course the barley, which is growing quite robustly. Over here we have quite a few barleys that are already starting to put out flowers. I love cutting them at this stage to use in flower arrangements. So this sunny pocket at the fire pit is exceeding all of my expectations, and I've still got one fava bean here, which has also made it through the entire winter and made it through that 11 degrees at the holidays. And you can see those flowers are just so cool. I'm really, really excited about these fava beans, and I've got more to sow, which I think spring sowing, mid-March sowing is actually the right time. So we'll be able to compare the two sowing dates. Now, I mentioned we don't have rain in the forecast, which means I need to come out with my deer repellent because they have been munching down endlessly on the crimson clover and the barley that's planted here. I also need to clean the pool. You can see that ring of yellow. That is the pollen, and it's actually quite low, so I just need to add water. I haven't been maintaining the pool as well as I usually do in my travels. For those of you who aren't familiar with crimson clover, this is what it looks like when it starts to bloom. And if I can get the deer to stop eating it, this will be all this color and it'll be really, really awesome. So deer spray is next as soon as I get done filming this garden tour. Everything over here on the patio, I'll be bringing a lot of containers back into the heated shed tonight, keeping them there through tomorrow. And funny enough, these broccolis that I sowed last fall, not really developing proper heads, so I'm gonna go ahead and just pluck them. They're totally delicious. Oh, they're so fresh. Worth it, even if they don't produce a big head. And I do have some flowers on the peas that I planted here. And I got some sweet pea flower seeds yesterday from Bell's, so I'm gonna go ahead and sow those along this cattle fence arch as well. Well, I didn't get this bed weeded when I said I should have, and you can see now that all that chickweed is going to seed, and it's going to be a huge disaster next year. And thanks to the cooler temperatures, the Cercis chinensis Don Egoff is still showing off its gorgeous blooms, and it hasn't started to put out leaves yet. The warm-ups definitely accelerate the plant's growth. Someone asked what the difference between Don Egoff and Avondale is, and I had to look it up because I didn't know. But Don Egoff, it was the first Chinese redbud to be introduced that was totally sterile. And so that makes it a much better option because you don't have to worry about it setting seed and potentially displacing native species. In contrast, like Cercis chinensis alba, this isn't sterile. I've never had a seeding issue with it. And I have certainly can sort of manage that in my own garden. But I would primarily recommend Don Egoff because it doesn't set seeds, and that also allows it to flower for a much longer period of time. I happen to really like both of these Cercis chinensis, so I'm not going to discourage you from ever planting either of these. But again, they are best in the climate zones 7 through 9. So these aren't really redbuds that you would be growing in colder places in the country. And that brings us back up to the front borders. I hope that this weekly garden tour has been an inspiration for all of you to get outside and see what's growing. You make some lists of things that you want to get accomplished in your garden this week. And I'm looking forward to sharing another update with you next week as we begin to sort of close out the winter season and officially welcome spring. Well, as always, thanks so much for watching, everybody. Happy gardening.